I was standing at my bathroom mirror, lipstick in hand, trying to look like a woman who still had control when my phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer. Just call me. Immediately. I dialed. His voice was tight. It's about your daughter-in-law. Don't say anything to anyone. Just go to dinner as planned. The lipstick slipped from my fingers and rolled into the sink. What he told me about Melissa, about who she really was, split my life in two. Some betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from people who call you mom. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up. 6 months ago, my son David married Melissa at a small ceremony by the lake. She looked perfect in her dress, smiled at all the right moments. I remember thinking how lucky he was. I'd been alone for 5 years since my husband passed. The insurance money and some careful investments kept me comfortable in my small apartment. Every week, I'd drive over with homemade cookies. That's what mothers do. David and I were close. Always had been. After his father died, we leaned on each other. Some nights he'd call just to hear my voice. Those calls got fewer after he met Melissa. I told myself that was normal. That's what happens when your child finds someone. Melissa seemed like the answer to everything. Polite, thoughtful. She'd hug me at the door and ask about my week. The wedding photo sat beside my perfume bottle's lavender and something my husband once liked. Every morning I'd glance at it, pretending that smile on Melissa's face was real. That evening felt like any other. But something was about to change everything. I sat on the edge of my bed and called Thomas Harrison back. My lawyer for 12 years, he'd handled my husband's estate. I trusted him. Thomas, what is this about? His breath was careful on the other end. A private investigator contacted me this morning. They've been building a case. Your daughter-in-law is part of it. My throat tightened. What kind of case? Financial fraud. Multiple victims across 3 states. He paused. Her real name isn't Melissa. The room tilted. The fridge hummed louder than the silence. That's impossible. David would have. They don't think he knows. She's done this before. Twice. I stood up, walked to the window. The street below looked the same as always. Cars parked, a neighbor watering his lawn. But nothing felt real anymore. What do you mean, twice? 2 previous marriages. Both men had assets. Both marriages ended with empty bank accounts and restraining orders. I thought of the wedding. How she had no family there. Said they were estranged. David believed her. I believed her. Part of me wanted to protect her, to find an explanation. The rest of me already knew. There's more, Thomas said. But I need you to do exactly what I say. Go to dinner tonight. Act completely normal. Don't tell David. Not yet. How can I sit across from her and... Because if she suspects anything, she'll disappear, and will never prove what she's planning. I wanted to call David. Tell him to come home. Tell him his mother had made a terrible mistake. Part of me reached for the phone. The rest of me set it down. This wasn't punishment, it was consequence. Just go, Thomas said quietly. His last words before hanging up. And trust me on this. The drive to their house took 30 minutes. I've made it 100 times. But that night, every mile felt longer. I kept my hands steady on the wheel. The streetlights flickered past. My radio was on, but I couldn't hear it. Just Thomas's voice in my head. 2 previous marriages, empty bank accounts. Part of me wanted to turn the car around. The rest of me kept driving. I thought about the first time David brought her home. 8 months ago now, a nice restaurant downtown. She wore a blue dress and ordered the salmon. Laughed at my stories, asked about my childhood. She was good, really good. I remembered little things, how she always paid in cash, said she preferred it, how she never posted photos online, said she valued privacy, how none of her friends came to the wedding, said they'd drifted apart. At the time, it all seemed reasonable. Now it felt like a script she'd memorized. The bag of cookies sat on the passenger seat, chocolate chip, David's favorite since he was 7. I'd made them that afternoon before Thomas called, before everything broke. Those cookies. I'd been making them for 30 years. My husband used to say they smelled like trust. I passed the exit for the grocery store where Melissa and I had shopped together last month. She'd been so helpful, suggested recipes, talked about wanting to take care of David. Said she wanted me to think of her as a daughter. My chest hurt. What kind of mother doesn't see through someone like that? What kind of mother lets her son marry a stranger? Because that's what she was. A stranger with a borrowed name. I thought about my husband, how careful he'd been with money, how he'd worked 2 jobs to make sure we were secure, the life insurance policy he'd taken out. He died wanting to protect us. He used to say, "Don't let politeness blind you, Janet." Back then, I thought he meant neighbors and salesmen. I didn't know he meant the people we let call us family. And I'd welcomed someone into David's life who might take it all. The guilt sat heavy in my stomach. Their neighborhood came into view. Nice houses, neat lawns, young families, the kind of place where nothing bad is supposed to happen. I pulled into their driveway. The living room light was on, warm and golden through the curtains. I could see shadows moving inside. From the outside, it looked perfect. I knew something would break tonight. This wasn't punishment, it was consequence. David opened the door before I could knock. He was smiling. That big, easy smile he's had since he was a kid. "Mom, perfect timing. We just put the roast in." He hugged me. I held on a second longer than usual. The house smelled like garlic and rosemary, familiar, warm, the kind of smell that should mean safety. Melissa appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She wore a cream-colored sweater. Her hair was pulled back. She looked like someone's perfect wife. "Janet, I'm so glad you're here." She hugged me too. Her perfume was light and floral. Everything about her was calculated to feel warm. I smiled, handed her the cookies. "Chocolate chip, David's favorite." "You spoil us," she said. Her eyes were bright, friendly. I wanted to scream. The dining table was set with dishes I'd never seen before. Cream china with gold trim. Expensive. The kind of thing David couldn't afford on his salary. "New plates?" I asked. Melissa glanced at them. "Oh, just a little housewarming gift. From a friend." "That's generous." She knows I love to entertain. She, always vague, never names. I'd never questioned it before. We sat down. David poured wine, the 3 of us around the table like a normal family. Melissa asked about my week. I told her about the grocery store, the book I was reading. All the small talk I'd rehearsed in the car. She was good at this, nodding in the right places, asking follow-up questions, making eye contact. But I watched her differently now. The candlelight trembled between us like it knew the truth before I did. When David got up to check the roast, Melissa's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it. Her face didn't change, but her hand moved to pick it up. "Work?" I asked. "Just a friend." She typed something quickly, put the phone face down. I'd never noticed before how she always kept that phone close. At the wedding, she'd had it in her bouquet holder. At Sunday dinners, it sat next to her plate. Even when she hugged me, I'd felt it in her back pocket. The wall clock ticked. The same clock David had bought when he first moved in, back when it was just him. Before Melissa arrived and started filling the house with expensive things that weren't hers, David came back with the roast. Melissa smiled at him. The perfect, loving wife. Something in that smile didn't reach her eyes. And when she excused herself to check on dessert, she took her phone. Always her phone. After dinner, David touched my arm. "Mom, come see the deck." We added some lights. He led me through the sliding door. The air outside was cool, sharp. The small balcony overlooked their backyard. String lights hung overhead, casting everything in a soft glow. David leaned against the railing. He had a glass of wine in his hand. He looked happy, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen since before his father died. "Things are good," he said. "Really good." "I can see that." "Melissa's been amazing. She's helped me get organized. Financially, I mean." He took a sip. "I was always terrible with money. You know that." I did know that. His father used to joke that David would give away his last dollar to someone who asked nicely. It was one of the things I loved about him. One of the things that terrified me now. My hand gripped the railing. "What kind of organizing?" "Investments. She knows people. She set up some accounts for us. Better interest rates, smarter planning." He smiled. "I should have done this years ago." What kind of accounts? Joint savings, and she suggested adding her name to the house deed. You know, for estate planning. It's what married couples do. My chest tightened, the string lights blurred. How much are we talking about? Just the savings, about 40,000, and the house, obviously. He looked at me. Why? No reason. I kept my voice light. There's no rush, is there? Rush for what? The deed. You've only been married 6 months. He laughed. Mom, she's my wife. It's normal. Normal. That word again. She'd trained him to think everything she suggested was normal. Through the glass door, I could see Melissa moving around the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear. She was smiling at something the person on the other end said. Does she have a background in finance? I asked. David shrugged. She worked at some firm before. I don't remember the details. He said it so casually, like it didn't matter. Part of me wanted to grab him by the shoulders. The rest of me knew I had no proof. Just Thomas's warning and my own rising panic. David. Melissa appeared at the door. Her smile was bright. Dessert is ready, she said. Come inside, it's getting cold. Her eyes met mine for just a second. Something flickered there. Then it was gone. We went back inside. Melissa had set out plates of chocolate mousse, the kind with the little mint leaves on top. She'd put candles on the table. Everything looked magazine perfect. I sat down, forced myself to take a bite. It tasted like nothing. Melissa, I said, kept my voice casual. Where did you say you grew up again? She looked up. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. Portland. Oregon or Maine? Oregon. She smiled. Rain capital of America. And your parents still live there? My mother does. My father passed away when I was young. I nodded slowly. I'm sorry. What did your mother do? For work? She was a teacher. High school English. David was eating his mousse, not paying attention. This was just dinner conversation to him. That's funny, I said. I could have sworn you told me she was a nurse, last month, at the grocery store. The room got quieter. The candlelight wavered. Melissa's smile didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Did I? I must have been thinking of my aunt. She was a nurse. She laughed lightly. They both took care of people. I get them mixed up sometimes. Your aunt. Yes, my mother's sister. I took another bite. Let the silence stretch. And you went to University of Oregon? Portland State, actually. Right, Portland State. I set down my fork. What did you study there? Business administration. And that's where you learned about finance? Her knuckles whitened around the fork. Just for a second. Among other things. David finally looked up. Mom, what's with the interrogation? Just curious. I smiled at him. Then back at Melissa. I don't think we've ever really talked about your background, your family. There's not much to tell, Melissa said. Her voice was still light, still friendly, but I could see it now, the calculation behind every word. Small family, quiet life. No siblings? No. And none of your family could make it to the wedding? We're not close. Part of me wanted to push harder. The rest of me feared what would shatter if I did. Melissa stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor. I should check on the coffee, she said. As she walked past me toward the kitchen, she glanced back. Just once. The mask had slipped. I left an hour later, kissed David goodbye. Melissa waved from the doorway, perfect smile back in place. The moment I got home, I called Thomas. Check your email, he said. I'm sending it now. I sat at my desk. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely move the mouse. The email appeared. Subject line, preliminary report. I clicked it open. Her real name was Rachel Morrison. Not Melissa, Rachel. I stared at the screen, at the mugshot attached to the file. Same face, same eyes, but harder somehow, colder, like the person I'd hugged had never existed at all. The report was clinical, factual, each line worse than the last. Convicted of financial fraud in Nevada 4 years ago. Suspended sentence, probation completed. 2 previous marriages. Michael Torres, married 2012. Divorced 2014 after he discovered she'd emptied their joint accounts. $68,000 gone. James Bradley, married 2016. Divorced 2018. Same pattern. He filed a restraining order. She'd forged documents to access his retirement fund. Both men had assets. Both men had recently lost someone. Both men trusted too easily. Just like David. The report went on. She'd used different names, different stories, but the method was always the same. Meet someone vulnerable, someone with money, someone who'd just lost someone. Like David, who'd lost his father 5 years ago and was still trying to figure out how to be okay. She'd researched him, chosen him, planned this. The timeline made me sick. She'd found him around 8 months ago, showed up at the coffee shop he went to every morning, spilled her latte on his laptop, apologized profusely, insisted on buying him a new one. That's how it started, with an apology that cost her $40 and earned her access to everything. I'd called it love. She'd called it strategy. There was a photo from her first wedding. She looked younger. Her hair was different, but that smile was the same. The one she'd used on me, on David, on everyone. I thought I was going to be sick. At the bottom of the report, one line stood out. Subject currently has access to joint accounts opened 2 weeks ago. Estimated balance, $42,000. 2 weeks ago. While I was bringing her cookies and calling her family. She was already inside. The next morning, I met with the private investigator. Her name was Kate Morgan. Thomas had arranged it. We sat in a corner booth at a coffee shop 20 minutes from my apartment. She had a brown folder in front of her. She didn't open it right away. "This is going to be hard," she said. "I already read the report. There's more." She slid the folder across the table. I didn't want to touch it, but I did. Inside were printouts of emails. Rachel had been sloppy, used the same email account she'd used before. Kate's team had tracked it. The first email was to someone named Patricia. Subject line, "New target secured." I read it. My coffee went cold in my hand. She called David the target. Talked about his decent assets and emotional vulnerability. Said the mother me was careful with money, but trusting. Trusting. She'd turned my kindness into a weakness. There was a response from Patricia. Advice on how to handle me, how to make me feel included, how to become family. Another email, dated 3 weeks ago. "The mom is careful. Need to work on the son first, getting him to consolidate accounts this week." 3 weeks ago, right after she'd invited me over for brunch, right after she'd hugged me and called me family. "Does my son know?" I asked. Kate shook her head. "We don't think so. She's very good at compartmentalizing." "Who's Patricia?" "Her mentor. We're still building that case." Kate pulled out another document. "But there's something else you need to see." She showed me a form, power of attorney, David's signature at the bottom, dated last week. She even had the forms ready, Kate said quietly. Rachel had been planning this for months, maybe longer. And the ink wasn't even dry yet. The next few days were the worst of my life. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those emails. The target. Need to work on the son first. David called twice, just to check in. His voice was so light, so happy. I wanted to tell him. But Thomas kept saying, "Wait. Wait for more evidence. Wait until we had something that would hold up." So I said nothing. Just asked how he was, how work was going, all the normal mother things. It was killing me. I kept thinking about the signs I'd missed. Rachel never wanted to take photos together. Said the camera always caught her at bad angles. At the wedding, she'd avoided the photographer for most of the night. She'd paid for everything in cash. Said credit cards were too easy to overspend with. I'd thought it was responsible. She had no social media. Said she valued her privacy. In this day and age, I'd actually admired that. All of it made sense now. She didn't want a digital trail, didn't want her face tagged anywhere, didn't want anyone from her past finding her. I sat in my apartment and went through every conversation we'd had, every Sunday dinner, every shopping trip, looking for the moment I should have known. But she'd been so careful, so good at this. I kept asking myself, was it her fault for lying or mine, for needing to believe her. Because after losing my husband, I wasn't just lonely, I was recruitable. My friend Linda came over on Thursday, found me sitting by the window, staring at nothing. "Janet, you look terrible." I told her everything, the whole story. She sat on my couch and didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You have to tell David," she finally said. "What if he doesn't believe me? Then you'll know you tried. What if he chooses her? What if he thinks I'm the one trying to break them apart?" My voice cracked. "What if I lose him? What I lose him?" Linda reached over and took my hand. "What if you don't tell him and she takes everything? What then?" I didn't have an answer. After she left, I sat there as the sun went down. The apartment got dark, but I didn't turn on the lights. Just sat there thinking about my husband, how he'd worked so hard, how he'd wanted David to be secure. And I'd let this woman walk right in. Had I been so lonely after he died that I needed to believe in the perfect daughter-in-law? Someone to share the family dinners with? Someone to fill the empty chair? Maybe I'd wanted to be fooled. Maybe believing felt easier than being alone. Loneliness has its own logic. It whispers that any warmth is real. That thought hurt more than anything else. My phone rang. "Thomas Harrison." "We need to meet tomorrow," he said. His voice was different, urgent in a way I hadn't heard before. "There's something else, something bigger." "What is it?" "Not over the phone. But Janet," he paused, "this is the kind of thing that'll make you very angry." I met Thomas at his office the next morning. Kate was already there. They had a whiteboard set up. My stomach dropped when I saw it. A map, with pins in it. Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington. 12 pins total. They called it a network. I called it heartbreak on a map. "Rachel Morrison isn't working alone," Thomas said. I couldn't breathe. "She's part of a network, an organized fraud operation. They've been doing this for at least 5 years. Probably longer." Kate stood next to the board. She pointed to the pins. "Each of these represents a victim. All men, all middle-aged, all with moderate assets, most of them recently widowed or divorced. They target vulnerability," Thomas said. "They research their marks, find out what they've lost, what they need. Then they become that thing." It was so calculated, so cold. They weren't just stealing money. They were stealing hope. Stealing the belief that someone could love you again after loss. Kate pulled up a file on her laptop, turned the screen toward me. "This is Patricia Walsh, 55 years old. We believe she's running the operation. She trains the younger women, teaches them the scripts, the patterns." The woman in the photo looked ordinary, like someone's aunt. Glasses, gray hair pulled back. You'd never look at her twice. "Rachel's been working with Patricia for 3 years. There are at least 4 other women in the network, maybe more. 4 other women, 4 other sons, 4 other mothers who had no idea. They share information," Kate continued. "Victim profiles, what worked, what didn't. They have a system." My hands were shaking. I set down the cup of water someone had given me, couldn't hold it steady. "Your son was carefully selected," Thomas said quietly. "They researched his background, his loss, his financial situation. Rachel knew about your husband's death before she ever met David." "You mean, they used it?" "Yes." I felt sick. "They found his social media, saw the memorial posts, tracked his routine, the coffee shop, the grocery store, the gym. They knew everything before she ever spilled that latte." Kate's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry. I know this is hard." Part of me was horrified. The rest of me was strangely relieved. It wasn't just me who'd been fooled. It wasn't just David who'd fallen for the act. This was professional, calculated, years in the making. But that didn't make it hurt less. "How many people have they stolen from?" I asked. "We can confirm 12 victims in the last 5 years. Total losses around $2 million. $2 million. 12 families destroyed. 12 mothers who'd baked cookies and welcomed strangers. 12 sons who'd believed someone could love them again." Kate looked at me across the table. "We've been building a case for months, but we need something concrete, something that will hold up in court." She paused. "We need your help. And we need to act fast before she disappears again." A detective joined us then. His name was Mark Stevens. He worked fraud cases for the county. "Here's what we're thinking," he said. "We need Rachel to show her hand. Get her to reveal her intentions on record." "How?" I asked. Kate leaned forward. "You tell David you're planning to give him money, a gift, something substantial. Let's say $150,000 from an investment that just matured." My mouth went dry. "Rachel will hear about it. She always does. Then we watch what she does next." Mark added, "And if she takes the bait, you can mention your reserve fund. Make it bigger. 300,000. That's when people get greedy. That's when they make mistakes." "Isn't this entrapment?" Mark shook his head. "No, because we're not forcing her to do anything. We're creating an opportunity. She chooses whether to take advantage of it. If she does nothing, then we've learned something. If she moves forward, that's on her." Thomas added, "We'll be monitoring, recording if she tries to get David to transfer the money, documenting everything." "And if she realizes it's a trap?" I asked. "If she disappears?" "That's the risk," Kate said quietly. "But if we don't act now, she'll take what she already has access to and vanish anyway. We've seen the pattern. She usually stays 6 to 8 months. You're at 6. 6 months. The clock was already running out. "There's one more thing," Kate said. "We'd like you to meet with Rachel, just the two of you. Tell her you want to get to know her better. Mother and daughter-in-law bonding. You want me to sit across from her and lie?" "We want you to give her rope," Mark said. "People like Rachel, they get confident. They think they're smarter than everyone else. If she believes you trust her with financial information, she'll start making mistakes." I looked at the map on the wall. 12 pins, 12 families. What if I can't do it? What if she sees through me? "You've already done it," Thomas said. "At dinner. You asked her questions, caught her in contradictions. She didn't realize what you were doing until it was too late." He was right. I'd kept my voice calm, smiled, acted normal while my world fell apart. Part of me still wanted to protect her, to believe there was some explanation. The rest of me knew better. That woman in David's house wasn't Melissa, she was Rachel. And Rachel was a professional. "If I do this," I said slowly, "what happens to David?" "We'll help him recover what we can," Thomas said. "The power of attorney can be challenged. The joint accounts too. It won't be easy. But we'll fight for every dollar." Kate pulled out a consent form. "We need your permission to proceed, to record conversations, to monitor her activity." I stared at the paper. My husband used to say, "Money shows you who people are." But he never told me it also shows you who you've become. And I'd become a woman ready to fight back. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid. I was angry. And anger could be a kind of clarity. My husband had worked his entire life to make sure we were safe. He died believing his family would be okay. I wasn't going to let this woman prove him wrong. This wasn't punishment. It was consequence. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady now. "What do you need me to do?" Mark smiled. "First, you call David. Tell him about the money. Make it sound casual, like you've been thinking about it for a while." Kate added, "Then you text Rachel. Suggest coffee, just the two of you, this week if possible. And then? Then you let her talk. People like Rachel, they can't help themselves. They always talk too much." I signed the form. Thomas put his hand on my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing." "I hope so." 3 days later, I called David, kept my voice light. "Honey, I've been thinking. There's something I want to give you and Rachel. Can we talk this weekend?" On the other end of the line, I could almost hear Rachel listening. That weekend, they came over, David and Rachel, both of them. I'd set out tea and cookies, made everything look normal. My hands were steady as I poured. "So," David said, "what's this about?" I smiled, kept my voice casual. "I've been thinking about your future. Your father's life insurance, some of it was invested. One of those accounts just matured. $150,000. Rachel's eyes went bright, just for a second. Then she controlled it. "Mom, that's incredible. I want you two to have it. For a bigger house, or whatever you need." Rachel reached across and squeezed my hand. "Janet, that's so generous." Her hand was warm. Mine was cold. David looked stunned. "Mom, Are you sure? Your father would want this. He worked so hard for our family. Rachel was already thinking. I could see it. The wheels turning behind those bright eyes. Maybe we should open an investment account, she said. I could help manage it, get you better returns than a regular savings account. That's thoughtful, I said. Let me think about the details. 2 days later, I texted her. Just the two of us. Coffee? She responded within minutes. I'd love that. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. She was already there when I arrived, ordered me a latte, extra foam, the way I liked it. She'd been paying attention, learning my habits. That's what made her so dangerous. I'm glad you suggested this, Rachel said. I've been wanting to spend more time with you, just us. Me too. I sat down. I wanted to talk to you about the money, the financial side of things. Her posture changed, leaned in slightly. Of course, I'm happy to help with anything. David mentioned you have experience with investments. Some. I worked at a financial planning firm before I met David. I know people, good people, discreet. They handle high net worth clients. How high are we talking? Well, your $150,000 would be on the smaller side, but they'd still take good care of you. I sipped my latte. Let the silence stretch. The foam had already started to cool. The thing is, I said carefully, I have another account. A reserve fund, about $300,000. I've been wondering if I should consolidate everything. Her pupils dilated, just slightly. That's very smart thinking. Consolidation often means better rates. Would you want to be on the account? As family? For estate planning purposes? I think that's wise. God forbid anything happened to you, but it would make the transition smoother for David. God forbid. She said it so smoothly, like she cared. I pulled out my phone, pretended to look at something. Rachel, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Have you managed large sums before? I just want to be sure. Oh, absolutely. At my last firm, I handled portfolios in the millions. Which firm was that? Sterling Financial, in Portland. I nodded slowly. And before that? Where did you work? She didn't miss a beat. A smaller firm in Seattle, Whitman and Associates. I looked at her. Really looked at her. That's interesting, because I spoke to someone who knew you in Nevada. The air between us changed. The cafe noise seemed to fade. She set down her coffee cup, carefully. Nevada? Yes. They told me some fascinating things. Her smile didn't waver, but something shifted in her eyes. I've never lived in Nevada. I think you have me confused with someone else. Do I? I pulled up a photo on my phone, the mugshot from Kate's file, slid it across the table. Is this someone else? She stared at the screen. For 3 seconds. Maybe 4. Then she stood up. I don't know what this is. Kate appeared from a corner booth, walked over. Sit down, Rachel. Rachel froze, looked from Kate to me, back to Kate. Who are you? Detective Kate Morgan, Private Investigations. Kate pulled out a chair. We need to talk. Mark Stevens stepped in from outside. His badge was visible on his belt. Rachel's face went blank. That perfect mask she'd worn for months just gone. What was left was cold, calculating. She looked at me. This is what you've been doing? Setting me up? No, I said quietly. This is what you've been doing. To my son, to me, to 12 other families. I don't know what you're talking about. Mark sat down, pulled out his phone. We have your emails, Rachel, the ones to Patricia Walsh, the ones about David, about the target, about how to handle the careful mother. She didn't move. You used my son, I said. You used his grief, his trust. You researched his father's death, and you used it to get close to him. Her jaw tightened. Did you ever love him? Even a little? For a moment, I thought she might keep lying, keep pretending. Then she smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. He was easy, she said. They all are. David. My David. Easy. It wasn't just him she fooled. It was me. And maybe part of me wanted to be fooled, because believing felt easier than being alone. Did you ever love him? I asked again. She leaned back, crossed her arms. Love doesn't pay bills. Mark stood up. Rachel Morrison, you need to come with us. We have some questions, and we have a warrant to search your residence. She didn't fight, just picked up her purse, stood slowly. As they walked her to the door, she looked back at me, not with anger, not with fear, with something close to respect. You're stronger than I thought, she said. The loudest justice is the one that doesn't say a word. And in that silence, I finally heard myself again. Then she was gone. I told David that night, drove to his house, sat him down in the living room where we'd had so many Sunday dinners. He didn't believe me at first, got angry, said I was trying to sabotage his marriage. Then I showed him the emails, the mugshot, the police report. He read them in silence. Each page seemed to age him. When he finally looked up, his eyes were different. He cried. My grown son sat on his couch and cried like he was 7 years old again. I held him, didn't say anything, just held him while his world fell apart. The next few weeks were legal procedures. Thomas helped David challenge the power of attorney. The joint accounts were frozen. Rachel, or whatever her real name was charged with fraud. Multiple counts across multiple states. David cooperated with the police. They recovered most of his $42,000, not all of it, but enough. Rachel was connected to Patricia Walsh. The whole network started unraveling. Other victims came forward, women and men who'd been too ashamed to speak up before. Some had lost more than money. One man lost his business. Another lost custody of his kids because Rachel had planted evidence of instability. These weren't just financial crimes. They were systematic destruction of lives. David didn't talk to me much at first. He was embarrassed, angry at himself, angry at me for being right. But slowly, over weeks and then months, he came around. He started therapy, said he needed to understand how he'd missed the signs. His therapist told him something that helped. Love isn't blind, but grief can be. 6 months after Rachel's arrest, we sat on my balcony, evening light, 2 cups of tea between us. I'd brought cookies. I poured the tea, the same cups I'd used the night she came to dinner. This time, they didn't tremble in my hands. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For not listening to you, for thinking you were… Stop. I put my hand over his. You loved someone. That's not something to apologize for. I thought love meant trusting completely, no questions. Love means trusting, but wisdom means verifying. I squeezed his hand. Your father used to say that, about business, about people, about everything. David smiled a little, the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. You saved me, Mom. No, I just refused to let you go. We sat there as the sun went down, not talking, just being together. I learned something through all of this. Trust yourself, trust your instincts, and when something feels wrong, it probably is. I also learned that forgiving yourself is harder than forgiving anyone else. I'd let that woman into our lives. I'd welcomed her, made her cookies, called her family. But I'd also stopped her, and that had to count for something. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the place we start again. Sometimes the justice you wait for never comes from the court. It comes from finally sleeping through the night again. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, someone you welcomed into your family, I want you to know something, and I know I'm not the only one. It's not your fault. It's okay to protect yourself. It's okay to ask questions. I don't tell this story to scare you. I tell it so maybe when you reach for the phone, you'll know when to set it down. If this story found you, maybe it's because you needed to hear this. You can't save everyone you love, but you can still save yourself. If this story touched you, or if you've lived something like this, share your story in the comments below. Let's remind each other we're not alone. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments.